You deleted the chats. You tried to move on. You told yourself, if it was written, it would have worked. But it's been months, maybe years, and they're still on your heart, not as a fantasy, not as an obsession, but as a name you whisper in du'a, a softness that never left. And now you're wondering, is this just emotional weakness? Is this just nostalgia? Or is Allah trying to tell me something I haven't understood yet? Because maybe it's not supposed to be erased. Not yet. You tried letting them go. You even convinced yourself you were over it, until that random dream, that unexpected memory, that one moment during ṣalāh, when their name just floated back into your chest. No warning, no reason, just there. And it's not like you're texting them. It's not haram. You're not stalking their page. You're not obsessing. But their name still shows up when your hands rise in du'a, still feels like the only place your heart breathes naturally. And now you're stuck in the gray zone that no one talks about, the one where it's not toxic, but it's not moving forward, where it's not sinful, but it's not peaceful either, where you keep asking Allah, what do I do with this? Because the pain isn't in holding on, it's in not knowing why you still are. And if that's you, if you're carrying someone in your heart longer than makes sense, maybe the question isn't, why haven't I moved on yet? Maybe the question is, what if Allah hasn't written the end yet? This video isn't about chasing people. It's not about false hope or romanticizing heartbreak. It's about signs, subtle ones, soul-level ones. The kind Allah places in your life when something is not meant to be erased, but evolved. Let's talk about the signs that maybe, just maybe, Allah doesn't want you to move on yet. Not because it's easy, but because something about it is not done. Sign number 1, you tried moving on, but peace never came. You did everything they say you're supposed to do. You deleted the photos, you muted their name, you even tried talking to someone new, hoping maybe distraction would do what du'a didn't. But no matter how many times you told yourself, it's over, I'm done, it never felt done. And that's the strange part, right? You weren't trying to hold on. You were begging Allah to let you let go. You wanted the closure. You wanted the peace. But all you got was silence. Not peace, just emptiness. You'd be fine for a while, until something small, a voice, a scent, a random ayah, cracked open your chest again, and suddenly everything came flooding back, not in a desperate way, but in that familiar, calm ache that says, I'm still here. That's when the confusion hits, because heartbreak usually comes with chaos, crying, longing, mistakes. But this is quiet. You're not crying over them anymore, but you're still not healed. You're not hoping for them to text, but their name still lives in your du'a. You don't miss the drama. You don't even want them to chase you. You just want to understand why your soul hasn't moved on, when your mind already has. And maybe that's because what you were trying to let go of was never meant to be released. Not yet. Maybe what you called moving on, Allah was calling pause. Because when a connection is meant for your growth, it doesn't leave your chest just because time passed. It leaves when the lesson is complete, when the mission is over, when the season of that love ends. And if you still feel it, not in lust, not in fantasy, but in a calm, centered longing that doesn't scream but just sits there, that's not a sin. That's a sign. Not every delay is rejection. Not every silence is a no. Sometimes when Allah wants to grow you through someone, He doesn't erase them. He just holds the story until you're both ready to finish it the right way. And if that's what you're in right now, you don't need to feel ashamed for still caring. You weren't weak. You just moved on with your hands while your soul stayed behind. And maybe that's exactly where Allah wanted it to wait. Sign number 2. Your du'as keep circling back to them without you forcing it. You weren't even thinking about them. You opened your hands and their name just showed up. Not loud, not needy, just there, sitting between your tongue and your heart, like it had always belonged there. And the weird part? You didn't plan it. You didn't say, Ya Allah, bring them back. You were praying for your career, your deen, your peace, but your soul kept folding their name into every request, as if it believed they were part of all three. That's when it started getting uncomfortable. Because you thought this was over. You made du'a months ago to move on, and you meant it. You weren't trying to reopen anything, you just wanted closure. But why does their name still live in your ribcage, even after you buried the relationship? This isn't infatuation. This isn't you sitting around all day romanticizing what was. This is something quieter, something deeper. A feeling you keep trying to explain away as a mistake. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's a thread that never cut, because Allah didn't let it. Maybe you made that du'a back then thinking it was about them, but it was really about you becoming ready, because the heart doesn't speak in fantasy when you're in sajda. It doesn't lie when your forehead's on the ground. And if you keep finding them in the moments you're closest to Allah, that means something. Not everything, but something. You're not obsessed. You're not desperate. You're just haunted by a prayer you didn't mean to repeat, but somehow it keeps returning. And here's the part most people ignore. If you didn't plant that thought, and it keeps circling back when your soul is the most pure, what if it's not a test? What if it's guidance, disguised as longing? Not the kind that rushes you back into haram, but the kind that whispers, wait, just wait. Because sometimes Allah delays a connection not to punish you, but to preserve you. Sign number 3. If it was just lust, you would have forgotten by now. You ever crave something for weeks, then finally get it, and 2 hours later, you're over it? That's how lust works. It burns hot, fast, then dies in silence. But this doesn't burn. It lingers. You've gone weeks, even months, without seeing them. No texts, no voice notes. Maybe they've moved on. Maybe you did too. But somehow, they still live rent-free in your chest. Not as a fantasy, but as unfinished peace. That's the difference. Lust lives in the body, but this lives in your du'a. Lust wants now, but this is strangely patient. Quiet, heavy. It doesn't distract you. It focuses you. Like you're not chasing them anymore. You're chasing the version of you that could handle a love like that the right way. And maybe that's why it hasn't gone away. Because this wasn't just about attraction. It was about transformation. It wasn't just chemistry. It was accountability. You saw your flaws around them. You saw the parts of your deen you had to rebuild. You didn't feel complete with them. You felt convicted. And what's wild? That version of you, the one who could show up with full iman, full self-respect, no games, you're still becoming them. That's why it hurts. Because the person you're still thinking about is tied to the person you're trying to become. This isn't about them. It never really was. It's about the you that only existed when they were around. And maybe, just maybe, Allah isn't reminding you of them to break you, but to rebuild you into someone who could finally deserve a love like that. Not a love that makes you slip, but one that makes you rise. Sign 4. Every time you pull away, you see signs that pull you back. You told yourself you're done. You even meant it. You deleted their number, hid the old pictures, blocked their account. You made a whole du'a just asking Allah to remove them from your heart. But then, a random khutbah talks about patience in love. A stranger's TikTok ends with a name you used to say every night in your du'a. Your dreams, which were empty for weeks, suddenly fill with the same face you tried to forget. And worse, it doesn't feel random. You keep seeing things, hearing things, moments that feel like signs, like soft echoes from Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, not pushing you toward them, but refusing to let you fully walk away. And it's confusing, right? Because you're not trying to chase a fantasy anymore. You're not even asking to be with them. You just want peace. But peace isn't coming. And instead, signs are. So you start second guessing. Is it my mind playing tricks on me? Is Shaitan messing with my heart? Or is this really Allah telling me, not now, but not never? Because some people don't show up to stay. They show up to wake you up, to pull your heart out of cruise control, to remind you how deeply you're capable of caring, to show you where your Aman breaks down under pressure, and where it could be rebuilt stronger. And maybe Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, is letting these signs repeat, not to torment you, but to test you, not to keep you stuck in circles, but to see if you'll move forward with intention, stronger boundaries, clearer vision, clean heart. Because let's be honest, if it were purely a test from Shaitan, it would feel tempting. But this feels different. It's not seductive, it's sobering. And if something is pulling you back every time you try to let go, don't just ask, why them? Ask, what is Allah still trying to teach me through this? Sign 5, you're growing closer to Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of this waiting. You thought the wait would break you, but quietly, without even noticing, you started to heal in places that had nothing to do with them. You wake up for tahajjud now, not because you're begging for them back, but because something in your chest finally knows where to turn when things get heavy. You learn to whisper du'a while washing dishes, to talk to Allah in your own words, not just memorized phrases, to cry without needing a reply. And somehow that waiting, the unanswered questions, the silence, the slow ache that never fully leaves, became the reason you started remembering Allah more. You used to ask, why hasn't Allah removed them from my heart? Now you ask, what is Allah growing inside it instead? Because sometimes Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, lets you wait. Not for them, but for the version of you who can handle what's written. Maybe that person wasn't you a few months ago. Maybe you weren't strong enough yet to love without attachment, to care without control, to want someone without making them your qibla. And it's wild, right? This heartbreak that started with confusion and longing now feels like a secret door to Iman. The more you lose control over the outcome, the more you surrender to the one who always had it. And that surrender, that's not weakness, that's the start of real love, not just for someone else, but for Allah. And it doesn't mean this person is your future, but it does mean you're becoming someone who's finally ready for what Allah knows is yours. So maybe the reason you can't move on isn't because you're weak or obsessed or desperate. Maybe it's because Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, still has a lesson unfolding through the waiting. Maybe this isn't the ending. Maybe it's not even the middle. Maybe it's just a sacred pause, a place where your heart finally meets your Iman. Because here's the thing no one tells you. Not every delay is a no. Sometimes Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, pauses the story to prepare the characters. And if you feel like you're stuck in that pause, not moving on, but not moving forward, maybe it's not punishment. Maybe it's protection. The Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, know that what hit you was never meant to miss you, and what missed you was never meant to hit you. And he also said, no one relies on Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah disappoints them. So stop panicking over the unknown. Stop writing tragic endings in your head. If Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, is keeping someone on your heart while growing you spiritually at the same time, maybe you're not meant to erase them, just not idolize them. And if you still feel stuck, say this simple du'a, softly, like a whisper between wounds. Ya Allah, if this person is written for me, protect that path and prepare us both. But if not, protect me from what I want and return me to what I need with peace. If you felt this video carved out a piece of your soul, don't scroll away in silence. Leave this short du'a in the comments for the one you're waiting for or for the healing you never got. Ya Allah, if they're meant for me, prepare our hearts. like the video if it helped you breathe again, and subscribe, because this isn't just content. It's a journey of rediscovering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the hardest emotions. Together. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.